Good afternoon, everybody. Today, I would make the presentation titled Control Methods Like a Pro. If we talk about methods, method itself, I'm sure you use it daily in your daily work. And I'm sure you are very much used with the methods, but there are some aspects that are not well known, and I would like to focus on those aspects that is not well known. For example, sometimes you might think if you want to call the methods, if there are some conventions, you want to add some conventions. For example, name of the method, or if there's a library for the test, like a mini test, and since it starts with a test, and to acknowledge it automatically, that is a method for the test with a name of test. And also to certain method, you want to add the callback. For example, if it's for the log and you need to have the callback, but you don't want to alter the method itself, or you're not allowed to do that, in that case, without altering the method, you want to add some features. Maybe you might have those needs sometimes. In that case, the active support callback is provided by Rails. Of course, that can also do that. But for this case, you have to first consider that callbacks might be added in the method. So it has to be written at the very beginning that you might sometimes add the callbacks to this method. But what I'm trying now is how can we do that without doing that? So that's when we should work with this idea. This is a code that I have just considered, which is in a logic class, and let's add call here. What I'm trying to do here is that this method, if you look at the bottom, you see main, and you want to call the main. But before calling the main, you want to do a validation to that. So how to execute the validation? If it starts with validate underscore in the name, that's the method. To first call that method that starts with validate. And you don't have to take notes because I will explain about the codes later about this one. The class named logic is what we just saw, and the logic class, if we succeed that this will be the code. The main is only just output as the argument. The validate name presence or validate name length. This part is in order to fulfill that the name starts with validate, so they are called before the main is called. So how do we actually use it? This is an example that I did with IRB. I added name Masafumi to this logic, and if I call that, which validation has been executed is shown here, and then after that the name comes out and it's new coming out. But if we are not going to give the argument to that, if it's an empty name and it's being Rails with the name for the method, those are the cases. So that's a way to use. Of course, I can give many other examples, but let's say that's for a while. So you might be wondering who I am. My name is Okura. My name is Okura Masafumi. I started using Ruby since 2012, and from 2013, I'm working with Ruby. I'm a freelance Ruby Rails developer. And I'm mainly putting much efforts these days in the project of Kaigi on Rails, focusing on Rails. It's a technical conference. I'm working as an organizer, and also I do some of the work for OSS, like the fixing the typo or to give the CI to other people's OSS or to give the budgets. And also I myself made the gem named Alba, and the JSON serializers are also what I have made. And what I'm talking right now was made when I was creating Alba. So my speech is made up of two parts. The first part is to know. In Ruby, there are methods for methods. That means that these are the methods to operate the methods. And especially among that, if we are to know those, let's focus on those that we can obtain the information. So first, there's a method that lists the methods. What you see here with bold characters with a backsheet, those are the actual names of the methods. Well, I have listed about 3 of them: methods, private methods, and singleton methods. And so these are all going through symbols, and not going through the method object. So first, the methods. There are public methods, and there are different kinds of methods here. But these two call back with the list. Private methods are a method does not appear on methods, so they call back, return the methods that are private. And the singleton methods are specific methods. They return those special methods to list the class methods in most cases. And then if we are to fetch methods or to obtain methods, methods. This is to make method into an object, and to bring it to make it into object for some method that a method has, and to return that. Let's say there's a full line of characters, and I put gsub as a symbol. Then the method object of gsub will be returned, and which is executable. This is the method that is executable, and if it's executed, the gsub will be called. On the other hand, there is another method named instance method. In most of the cases, they are class or modules. It's a method that they are returning those kinds of methods. The string, which is a class object, and instance method. If we put the instance method, then the gsub, again, if we add that, then the gsub method that are not executable will be returned, because there's no characters that are to substitute, just like the foo that we saw before. It is lacking that kind of thing here. So I came through this very quickly, but method is also an object. So the method as a method object, there are 2 types of classes to express that. One is the method class. So foo.method gsub will be the similar one that you saw in that example, it is executable. And the reason why it's executable because the necessary information are already there. Object receivers or method receivers objects are there. So all the informations are available there. So the method class object is called a proc object, which is like a block. So it is possible to change it to proc, or if it's right unbound, it is possible to change to an unbound message. An unbound method class is like something you can obtain that instance method that I explained before. This is not executable. And the right reason why is because when we do the GSUM, for example, foo.gsum, it shows that's a status where it doesn't show to what should be substituted. That's what we call the unbound method. Not executable with the most important point here, but also not possible to convert into a proc. If it cannot be called, it cannot be a proc. And the missing information to what object will be linked can be added with the method of bind. And by doing that, it could be changed to method class. So you can know a lot about methods, since method object is just an object. So it reacts to various information like name. You can know what's the name, and parameters. You will know what are the arguments, and RETs also shows a number of arguments, and the source location is very convenient for debugging. You can see in which file the methods are defined. You can know that by looking at the source location. It gives the location of where the source is, and there's no body. In Ruby, method will transfer many information, but as for the body itself, there's no way to obtain. That's not available for individual methods. And the demonstration here. So let me go to the first part of the demonstration. I showed the logic class in the beginning, so let's take a look at that. Here, we call methods, and then also private methods, and go through the symbol. So we combine that together with class and then hand it over to the select, and the method will, if it starts with validate underscore or not, and just by looking that, and that's first selected.
And call evaluate, and then the method object is obtained which is appropriate for that method, and this produces log through the name of the method. Therefore, this is a log name is called and executed, and the log is issued. And this is a method clause, and also it is possible to execute as call. And after this is done, we will go to main, and this is the call of the method. Next, and then my logical clause is a class defined, and then initialize it and obtain the name, and then just the output it. That is a main, the function of the main. So this is what we want to do, but before that, validate underscore, there are two methods of this kind. One is there is a name also empty. If the name is too long or too short, it's checked here.
でですね、
And then
まあ IRB 起動しまして、
ARB is
ワイ
initiated
ヤーレラティブでマイロジック
via relative and call mylogic.
マイロジック
And then mylogic.new.
モードロム接種みたいな
And then, as has been mentioned initially, my name is entered, and then it works with mail.
なんかフルネームとか入れると長すぎ
But
て
if you put full name, that is too long, and they would get angry.
あとまあ、当然のように
And also, obviously, mail
バリデーションが始まる
is given, then the validation would cut it off, and then it will call this
まあこんな感
sequence
じで
of
ですね
the messages like this. Therefore, the main and the mylogical class side,
素朴というか
it is quite simple, very concise, and the validation is done on the parent side, and that is
あのようなクラスの設計が可能にな
how
ります。
the kind of a class and the design was made possible.
で第2部なんですけれども、第2部は
I'll go into the second part. The second part is defining.
まあメソッドをね定義するっていうのは皆さんももちろ
Now,
ん
you know how to define method, and the day-to-day routinely you are doing it. And if you use Ruby,
普通は def というキーワードを
so we use a keyword
こちらは
like
まあ
def,
もう当然のように使うわけなんですが
and we also use the def.
場合によっては不便であるというのが
In some cases, this is not very convenient because it's static,
これどういうことかっていうと
which means,
ループの中で each とかの中
for
で
instance, in the loop and the each, if you use def one after another, it is not possible to do serially. In that case, we would use instead the define method.
デフってその後ろにつく名前って
Def
シンボルとかじゃないじゃないですか
it's not the symbol that comes after def as a name, but the define method can receive
と
name,
ゆえにこう
the
繰り
symbol.
返しの処理の中で
Symbol, therefore, the reiteration, it is possible to define the method because it can get a
デフ
symbol
メソッドの方は
after that. In the case of define method,
メソッドですねすいませんメソッドの内
it's
容
the content of the
ブロ
method,
ックとかメソッドオブジェクトとか先ほど出てきたもの
like
を用いて
proc and method objects
使う代用するということが
are
できるように
substituted.
もう一個ですねこれはあまり普段やらないことなんです
And
けど
usually we don't use
まあ
this method, but undefined
そういう
method.
ことも Ruby で
That
は
is to delete a method, and it is possible on Ruby. This is undef. It is a keyword, but we don't use it very frequently, and by using this undef keyword, it is possible to delete method. And there is the pair, which is undef method, and undef method is dynamic, and undef is static. So these are used differentially, and there's a remove method as well. This is just to delete a method, and it would we cannot go up to the level of the parent. Remove method is just consecutive chains, and just one point is deleted.
でこれらをですねうまいこと組み合わせると
By combining these well, it is possible to redefine method. Natively, the Ruby does not provide this function, but it is also possible to redefine method. I would like to explain that. Now,
で名前を決めます
we have to determine the name
そしたら
first,
その名前に応じたメソッドオブジェク
and
トっていう
then
のを
the method object corresponding to that name will be taken through method.
次に新しくプ
And
ロッ
then
クを作って
create new
でこ
proc,
の新しいプロックの中
and
で
then new proc
さっきの
inside
メ
the
ソ
new
ッド
proc.
メソッドを実際に呼んでしまう
Previous method is
ことを
called.
しますまあ ラップしてあげる、包んであげるっていう、
that is wrapping of this
新しいブロックで
and
古い
a
メソッドを
part.
包んであげる。
That
こう
means
する
a
こと
new
でその
block
機能
will
を出して
involve
あげるってことが
old method. By doing so, it is possible
で
to
これ
add
が終わったら
functions.
古いメソッド
And
に関して
after
は、
that,
警告が出ないように
regarding
一
the
回リムーブメソッドで
old
メソッドを除去します。
method, we need to eliminate,
で、
remove method
同
to
名のメ
eliminate
ソッドを
that
デファインメソッドにす
method.
るんですが、その際に
And the
先
same
ほど作っ
name,
た
under the
こ
same
の、
name,
今
we
スライド
defined
で
the
3番
method.
が
And number 3, we created a
メソッ
proc
ドメソッドで取ってきた
that is
古いメソッ
taken
ド
from
を
the
ラップしたブロッ
method
ク
method
を
and
新
the
しい
proc that wrap method
本
which
体
is
として取
old
りして、
and then it will be defined as
これをやるこ
the
とで
new
メソッ
main
ドを
body.
最低限
By
できま
doing
す。
so,
これ
it
は
is
どんなメ
possible
ソッ
to
ドでも
redefine method.
基本
Any
的な最低
method
限できるようになっています。
can be redefined in this way.
ね、ここまでの説明だとですね、結構
Probably
何のこっちゃっていう感じの方も多いと思うの
you
で、
didn't
もう一回
understand
デモをし
anything,
ます。
so let me demonstrate.
はい、2つ目のデモは、タイニーフックスという
This is the tiny hooks,
そのコードを、
the gem I created.
タイニー
And
フックスジェムは、
tiny
名前の通り
hooks
非常に小さな
gem,
コードを
as the name suggests, it has a very tiny code. But even though small, it is
まあちょっと
filled with a lot of
使用例をリードミーから見て
things that we can do. Let me show you how it operates.
マイメソッドがある
Starting from my
に対して
method,
デファインフックというメソッドで
define hook,
before
the
でマイ
method
メソッ
of
ド
define hook, and put it the hook before the method,
このマイビフォーフックっていうのを送って
and my before
希望
hook
する
is
出力
added
順としては
before.
マイビフォーフックが出たのに
And
マイメソッドが出るということなんだけど、
My method
見る
will
と
be
その通りだ
issued before, and
こ
actually
れはね
it
同
is
じ形でやってるので、割とありがたみが
done in that
感
way,
じにくいんですけど、
but it's not
まあ
that
いろんな、その
too great
メソッド名で
as we are doing always, and also we can do it method before,
クラスメソッドに対する
and also for the class method it is possible to
集
create
団
a
ができる
hook,
とかいろいろ
and also we can
やってるんですけども、
interrupt,
それをどうやって
and
実
we
現してい
can
くか
do
という
many things, and how to realize it is shown here.
このデファインフックっていうのが、まあ、ここは
Now
メソッ
define
ド
hook
なんですけど、
is the core
実際は結構
method
長いです。
in this case,
まず、
but
before なのか after なの
it's
か
longer before and after.
それ
We
から
have to specify,
そのどの
and
メソッド
then
これシンボル
which method, and this is defined with
で
a
あとは
symbol,
さっきの
and then followed
フ
by
ックを実際のその呼ぶべきコールバッ
the
クの内容を
definition of the
メソッド
hook,
名にして
the content of the
それを
callback,
要約
and that is described as a method name.
しますね。はい。で、クラスメソッドっていう
And then
フラグが立っていて、
class method,
用意されていて、
this is a
このクラス
flag,
フラグがあるときは、
and when there's a class method
プライ
flag,
ベートメソッドとかの呼び出しに
private method is
そ
called
れがない
in
場合
this
は、
case.
インスタンスメソッドに
Without
対
the
してフックを
flag,
仕掛けたりだとかですね、
hook is done for the instance method, and therefore it involves the private instance method, as the name suggests. Private thing is called with an instant method. So that is what it is, and put into the variable. The private method, depending upon it contains a target or not, it will bifurcate into two pathways. And then start from here, it says original method, and taking the public method, then the public method should be taken. Otherwise, the instant method should be called. And when it is called, it is a process, and also original method has to be conserved, and then it is done.
ブロックそのメソッドの本体に
The main body of the method, that is the main body of the hook, would be questioned, and this is the block. If it's in, it's okay, but if it's not, we have to call the method again. So this is a kind of the proc, the lambda, to call a method. And after undef, define the method after that. The main body of the method is a method body.
で最後にプライベート化する宣
And
言
finally, this is
このメソッドボディは何なのかと
a
いうと
declaration of the to making it
ビフォ
private.
アならビフォアメソッド
If it's a
アフターなら
before,
アフター
it's a
ここに
before
引用
method,
するだけ
and if it's
ビフォー
after,
はどうやってやってるか
it's
という
after
と
method, and this is
ルビーのバージョンによって
before.
さらに分岐していて
Depending upon the
ややこしいん
Ruby
ですが
version, it is bifurcated
2.7以上の
further.
場合は
And if it's over 2.7,
プロック
as I
メソッ
mentioned
ドを包むプロック
earlier, the block to
が
involve
その実際にメソッドを呼び
the
出してい
method
るっていう
is
箇所は
used, and the method is called here. It says original method is
ただしコール
called,
の仕方は
but
オリジナルメソッ
the
ドのクラス
method
によ
of
っては
calling depending upon the class of the original method.
この辺は真ん中ら辺のコードはずっとその
Now,
こう
these
どう
intermediate calls are the kind of the condition for interruption.
2.6以前の場合はまあちょっと違
If
うん
it's
です
before 2.6, the things are different. But basically, what we do is the same.
ちょっとね全部解説するの
Now,
は
I
時間
cannot give you all the explanation
こうするこ
fully,
とで
but by taking this method,
簡単に作れるよっていうライブラ
block
リが
can
で
be
きますちなみ
created
に
and
パ
a
フォーマンスが
library
結
is
構
produced.
良くなっていて
Now, performance is improved greatly, and as you see here,
なんかはいこの場合は
can you see? In this case,
いいかなそうです
this
ねはい
upper side is better.
1.62倍アクティブサポートの距離
1.62 times it is slower. Acumen support is not really slow, but the Tiny Fox can make it more efficient using those tiny
2つ目のデモになります
uh,
はいということでですね
triggers.
結構
That is the end of the second demonstration.
メソッド
I talked about this
いろいろ
in Rush, but I talked about the various methods to manipulate
結論と
method.
してはですね
In
これ
conclusion,
だけ一個覚えてくれっていうのがあればメソッドはオブジェクトではあるんです
take home method. Take home method is that the method is object. That is, if it's a single message that I have to deliver, this is a take home message. And also, I would like to convey to you personally
戯れてみることが
that
悪くないよっていう
it's not bad playing with this
私
method.
も最初の頃初めて
In the beginning, when I
どう使う
learned the method object, at first I didn't know how to utilize them.
先ほどお見せしたよう
But I showed you earlier,
なありましたし
there are some actual the cases in which method objects are used. And this is a kind of the friend to play with.
すごい
But in addition to that,
プログラミングの一部
this is part of the meta programming that gives us a great power.
このトークをですね見ていただいて
Therefore, after listening to
な
my
るほど
talk,
と思っていただけたり
if you are convinced
すごいと思っていただけたりとか
or if you think that this is
場合はですね
great,
何かこうなんていうかな仲間に加わってみませんかというようなお誘いというのが
I'd like to invite you to join
言いたい
us.
ことだったりします。
And this is what I'd like to
でですね
tell you personally.
次のステップ
And what are the next steps?
2つほど、上がっておりますが
There are two
一つは
names
先ほ
on
どご
this
紹介した
slide.
私の
As I mentioned earlier, this is about the Tiny
こちら
Fox library.
は、コードベースすごく小さい
And cores are
と、結構メソ
small
ッド周りを本当
and
なんかいろんな方法でいじっているので
utilizing and manipulating those around the method. And I think if you enjoyed my talk today, this part is very interesting for you too. And also the official document. We have to read official document. And also there are examples of the course. Therefore, please take a look.
最後はですね、なんといっても
And finally,
皆さんの行動です。やっぱり話聞いてる
these
だけ
are
だ
your
と
quote. Just listen to some other person's talk will not enable you to understand, and therefore it's better to use it yourself. You have installed Ruby, therefore please write your own code to understand how it works. please experience it
おります。
by writing your own codes.
この話を聞いていただいている皆さんのめたプロ話みたいなのを
And
聞けるこ
thank
とを
you for
楽しみに
listening to my
しつつ
talk,
発表
and
したいと
I'm
思います。
looking
本日は
forward
ありがとうござい
to
ました。
your feedback after you're writing your own codes. Thank you very much.